crazy. It's been such a pleasure playing your Fantasia 2 for solo flute, and I'd love you to talk a little bit about your piece.
Sure. Well, thank you so much for playing it. So it was commissioned for Lamorna Nightingale of Ensemble Offspring. And Ensemble Offspring is a really cool ensemble. They're not conventional, you know, they push the boundaries. So it's funny, as I was thinking about what I was going to write, I was listening to a lot of flute pieces that had a lot of extended techniques. And then after doing all of that listening, I thought, no, I'm going to write something a bit tonal, something a bit more conventional. But in the third movement, I definitely wanted to do something a little bit different, at least in my compositional language, which was to add a small pedal bass drum. And to have it really organically incorporated in that movement, as opposed to something that was like a layer of a veneer or some sort of superficial layer. I really wanted that to be really organically infused in the work. So that's just a little bit about how the work came to be and a quick spiel of the process I went through.
That's interesting how you arrived at incorporating bass drum with the solo flute. For me, it was definitely a fun challenge to do the pedal drum with my foot while playing the music, and I think our viewers will see that because in the performance we definitely had the drum showing, so you get to see the foot action as well as the flute part of my body, I guess. So that was definitely fun. I'm really interested in the lyricism of the second movement. The outer movements of the three are very active, very I think about virtuosity in a faster way. The second movement seems to be about virtuosity in a slower way for a wind player with control. What was your thinking about that in terms of the mood?
I just wanted to write something really beautiful. In the outer movements, I tried to incorporate as much counterpoint as I could in terms of you know, inner and outer and middle voices, so much as you can do in a single lined instrument. And I wanted to continue that in the second movement as well. So contrasting these long, luscious low notes and contrasting them with the upper register and having, you know, a beautiful ascent up to that top register. So still playing with the notion of low, middle, and high registers, but just in a different vein, I guess, just in a different mood.
Mm-hmm. And do you think contrapuntally in general, I mean, it's probably very different writing a solo flute piece than writing for larger ensembles. Is that something you try to bring to all your music?
Yeah, I don't think I can escape it. It's I'm always thinking about contrast and how to utilize the instrument for its full potential and its full dynamic and emotional range. And so I don't think of counterpoint just in terms of pitch, but rather, you know, counterpoint, like contrast in every aspect of the word, and how to organically create a work that has a solid structure and an interesting trajectory and an interesting journey. And contrast to me seems such a crucial aspect of that process. But not only contrast, but then how to have enough cohesion and unity so that it is interesting, but still has that idea that permeates throughout the work.
I see. It's interesting to hear you say that because I've definitely heard other colleagues, composers of today, expanding the definition of counterpoint in that way to some extent, beyond the intertwining lines that
Yes.
WC talked about, or that WC was referring back to Bach, back to Palestrina with, but sort of different types or textures of contrast, not solely that way. That's interesting. Yeah, and I also wanted to ask you about your musical influences.
Yeah, it's funny. You know, Beethoven is the composer that I first kind of really discovered and first, became enamored with. But I wouldn't say my music sounds anything like Beethoven, except perhaps for the idea that I love the notion of taking a small, cell or motif and really seeing how much I can do with it for it to be interesting. Who else? I think I drew inspiration from everywhere. I love Bartok and Stravinsky, so many contemporary modern composers, definitely my teachers, both at the Sydney Conservatorium of Music and at the Curtis Institute of Music. I've definitely been inspired by my teachers. But I think also literature plays a big role. Just thinking about the rhythm of the lines and grammatical syntax and contrasting short sentences with longer sentences and the effect that it has on the overall product is something that I find really intriguing. So thinking both on the microscopic scale and on the macro scale as well.
That's interesting to hear you talk about Beethoven. Of course, one of the greatest geniuses of all time, and certainly for music. But when you were talking about, let's say, referencing what sometimes musicologists call his proto-minimalism, right? Using a
Yes.
small kernel and extended it over a long period, or really plumbing the depths of an idea to all its advantage. That I was just thinking about some of the thirds that you use in your piece, especially major thirds. But like, there's some intervals, I guess, that you use a little bit like that kind of like an atom, right? In your
Yes.
work.
Yeah, that's a really cool way of thinking about it. I'd never thought of it in terms of, atoms or particles, but yeah, that's a really cool image. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you.